But I'll go press on that.
It's open.
You're going to be using this desk, Chris?
Yes.
And where's he going to be at? Who's going to start up, you or him?
I don't know.
Okay. That's fine.
That's a wireless display.
Yeah, I'm in the right place.
Can somebody check if the YouTube link is working? Who's on Redmond Brothers? Can somebody check the YouTube link, please? See if you're able to hear. Zoom link. Check the Zoom link as well. Oh yeah, I need to turn the Zoom link on. Hang on. Okay. Working? Can you hear? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I already did. Send it. Check if it's back on. Should be. Yes, it is, right? Yeah. Okay. And then for Zoom, where can I send you the Zoom link, Chris?
To send the Zoom link?
Yeah. So we can. You have Zoom, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll just give you the meeting ID then.
Okay.
1 sec.
So here, let me connect my AirPod.
You can go.
Testing.
Can you hear him?
I'm attorney Chris Benson. Can you hear me?
Should be now. You have your AirPods on,
I
right?
have AirPod on, yeah. Yep.
Still can't hear him?
Can you hear him?
On the Zoom.
On the Zoom.
Check both Zoom and YouTube, please. One person check Zoom, one person check YouTube. YouTube is fine.
So I can turn my microphone on also. I haven't turned that on yet. This one. So you get my headset now. So then this is for both brothers and sisters. That's that one. And then the other music AirPod.
It says mute here. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, my bad.
That's all right.
Okay. Now.
Now.
Okay. Good.
Wow. What an upgrade. What an upgrade from 2018, man. You guys did good.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inshallah, comments now. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina wa alihi wa sahbihi. Thank you, Chris Benson, for being here today and sharing your expertise. Together with we offer our thanks and jazakumullah khairan to all of you for attending. MashaAllah, this is a very important subject that we all need to educate ourselves on. The very least is to learn this knowledge, as we were discussing the Jumu'ah yesterday, that تعلموا الفرائض وعلموها الناس فإنه مطلوب وإنه أول علم سيرفع. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that learn this subject of inheritance and وعلموها الناس, and teach it to the people as well. Because I am somebody that's going to leave this world, and meaning that there's not going to be a person with that knowledge left to explain to you. So you need to take this knowledge from me and then pass it on to others so that this knowledge continues. And we should look at this knowledge itself, this aspect of inheritance and estate planning. This is not everybody's cup of tea. This is something that which is generally, studied in depth, and then it is passed on from one person to another person. And it only comes with a person practicing and being very, very regular with it. If you leave it for a while, then you start to forget it as well. So this is something that which requires practice of course, the distribution of shares, how much should go to each person, because it gets complicated. For example, a person leaves behind a wife, and one child. For example, the child is male. Then there's a certain distribution for that, and his parents will get a certain amount. Then the figures change sometimes. For example, a person does not leave behind a child, but both his parents survive him, and he has only one sibling surviving him as well. Then the parents' share is a little bit more, it's thuluth in that case. And then if you have two or more siblings, then it changes back to sudus, or 1/6. So these distributions sometimes can become complicated, and of course, the purpose is to have that knowledge at hand, where without even referring to a book or referring to a guide, to know that immediately this is the distribution. In any case, the reason why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has emphasized on this so much as well is because of it, affecting other people's rights. If a person is not afforded their right, they are not given their right of inheritance, or it's a little bit less is given, or a little bit more is given, without the consent of the other heirs, then this year will affect the person's rights. You could be usurping somebody's rights. Sometimes, for example, if the estate is awarded entirely to the wife and the children get nothing, then in this case, in this instance, the children are being deprived of their rights. Similarly, if a person is giving his children more and the wife is getting lesser than what she is deserving of, then she's being usurped of her rights. Similarly, brothers and sisters, sometimes this year they are being deprived of that as well. So, okay. I'll show you answer. I'm good on.
No.
I'm good on the floor.
Oh,
Right, so I just tell me if it's clear now. Is it better now? Samuel Hazard? All right, it's good. Yeah, okay, it's good. So, because of it could affect somebody's rights, monetary rights, which is something very emphasized in Islam. Right? That's why it is so important to have this knowledge and to know that we have to distribute our estate in a certain way. We have discussed some details about this yesterday in the Jummah Salah, and the purpose of that was just to conscientize the person that this is something which is a very sensitive subject. If we take even 1 cent of another person's unjustly, then this is going to come back to us on the day of Qiyam. On the day of judgment, we will be held accountable for it. Of course, it spoils all the blessings in a person's wealth in this world. But together with it, on the day of judgment as well, we will be held accountable for every cent that we have taken unjustly. We know the hadith about a person who even takes a little bit of sand from another person's yard unjustly is going to be held accountable for that. And that's why we find our ulama, rahimahullah ta'ala, they were extremely particular about this. Sometimes they would see something that is there for usage, but even then they would be so careful not to even use it because they would be afraid that maybe that person didn't want me to use it. They would be afraid until they did not gain explicit permission, etc. So the purpose behind this is to first of all conscientize a person, but at the same time, I just want to remind myself and the rest of the audience as well that inshallah we renew our intentions. This is not just an ordinary gathering. First of all, it's a gathering of ilm. It's a gathering of knowledge, and not just ordinary ilm. This is something which is known as ilm al-fara'id, the ilm of obligations, the knowledge of obligations, meaning that this is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has said, this is an obligation and a stipulation from Allah, right? So it's something which is extremely important. So it holds one of the highest levels of Islamic knowledge. And of course, the intention should be sincere that we are here now to, first of all, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And together with that, being in a gathering that is a gathering of knowledge, this is such a gathering where the angels throng to such a gathering. It is something that we are in the good company of others as well. And together with that, the intention should be that whatever we learn, we put this into practice. We want to put this into practice. We don't want to just be here and absorb the knowledge and that's it. No, we want to see how we can put it into practice as well. So we have the attorney here, Christopher Benson, who's worked extensively on forming the will according to Islamic law, which is included in a trust deed, and he will explain why a trust deed or to form a trust is actually important and sometimes even necessary. There are various reasons or legal implications that could come about if that is not formed. The other thing is that we have worked with him extensively to make sure that it is done according to Islamic law. And if anybody has done it already with him, or when you do it in the future, you will see that there is always one underlining clause there. It's a contingency clause that if there is any dispute, this here will refer to Islamic law, it will be judged by Islamic law. So there's always a contingency clause being repeated throughout this trust deed as well to make sure that this is done according to Islamic law. So I think there will be certain questions that will come about, which will be, of course, there will be legal questions or questions related to, or which Christopher Benson can answer, but there will also be some questions related to the Islamic law. So I don't want to go into too much detail, but whatever questions you have, present them when we open the Q&A slot, or you can even write it on a paper and send it through, or those of you that are on Zoom, you can write it in the chat and send it through, and then we'll filter them and then we'll go through them, inshallah. So I'll hand it over to Christopher Benson again. Once again, thank you, Christopher, for being here and giving us a lot of your time. He's helped the masjid in, in many legal issues as well. He's been an advisor for the masjid. Together with that, giving a lot of time informing this thing according to Islamic law. This is something now which is a great effort and great feat from his side. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept the efforts of all.
Thank you very much. Can the sisters hear me on the other side?
We're all working here? Okay, very good. Okay. So, let's see here. There we go. Oh, that's unfortunate. So, I don't know if there's any way to adjust this up, but thank you for inviting me to the center today. I'm very blessed, and we are very blessed to be here. A feature that I found out about yesterday is the interpretation. So I've done the interpretation in Arabic as a courtesy to you. Now, if there are any bad words that pop up down here at the bottom, I do not know that. You got to tell me that has happened. And if you are involved in this part of the program for PowerPoint, you will need to leave the presentation immediately, and you need to go to your office because there's apparently a bug that you need to fix. So that's on you, that's not on me. But welcome, all kidding aside. I'm blessed to be here. I'm blessed to be associated with the Islamic Center of Redmond, as well as MAPS and other Islamic centers. It's been a fantastic relationship that we have developed over time. And today, I know there's going to be many questions, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview. And are we working, or streaming, or is everything working? Yeah, we're all good? Okay. And so everybody's streaming and resuming, they can see the PowerPoint. Okay, very good. All right, so here we go. Are you willing to spend 3 hours to protect you? That's what we're talking about. That's it. It takes me more time, but are you willing to take 3 hours to protect your family? So here we go.
Right, Chris.
All right.
The slide. The Bluetooth, yeah.
One of us can sit there and move it for you if you want. That works.
Okay, so quick about me. There's a lot of these. I'm admitted to practice in Washington, Arizona, Idaho, and Oregon. We can get your complete estate plan done from the comfort of your home. We can do it all by Zoom. Everything we're going to talk about today, you can get done from the initial consult, through the preparation, through the signing appointment, the witness, the notary, the delivery to you, the electronic copy to you, the originals back to you, all without you leaving the house. So now you can live anywhere and have the best lawyer to help you and your family out. In the past, I just got something that said, are you showing anything? We can't see anything. Is that on Zoom?
You're showing on YouTube.
You share the screen.
Share screen? Okay, we'll share the screen on Zoom. All right, that bad.
Yeah, that should, sure.
Good now?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Can you see it?
Okay, so in the past 30 years, so I was here for prayer on Thursday at 7:30, about 3 weeks ago, and a good friend of mine, Sheikh Muhammad, said I look old. I've been doing it for 30 years. It's not the years, it's the mileage, right? So we've helped over 2,000 clients with their estate planning needs. We've helped over 1,000 people to do a probate. I'll tell you a little bit about what probate is. It's the court system that you use. Next. Let me see if I can see if this works. And how's the translation down here? Is that doing good? Okay. Good job, team. All right. I've been honored to be friends with Mohammed Sheikh and his wife Saima for over 25 years. For the past 10 years, I've been representing members of the Islamic community. I've represented the board here on various legal matters. So it's been a fantastic relationship, and I'm very blessed to do that. With the guidance of Mufti Suhail, I have created a complete Islamic plan that complies with both Washington law and Islamic law, and that's the key. So I've been on this journey for many years to make it so that understanding that you have certain things that you have to abide by, and working a way that also marries with Western law. So that's the unique thing that I've created. That's why I understand that there's things out there, you will maker or no low or all these different things or forms off the internet. What I created is unique because I'm the one that wrote every word, and I know nobody else has it. And I know it's what every person in this room and all the sisters, it's all what you need. And I'm gonna tell you why. It's mostly about our children. So next slide. Okay, so we're gonna talk human to human. Right, just basic love. Are you willing to spend, and I'll click it. Or you can click it.
No, I need to just start the
You need to
recording.
adjust it?
No, I just need to start the recording.
Okay.
Record the clock.
Well,
The second thing on
it says recording in progress.
Yep. Right.
I'm glad it's just not me that runs into these things. It was working when I left the house and then.
Check the Bluetooth setting if the device has been
Yeah, something click for the talking points. Clicking point, it's the talking points.
I can do that, but if you want to try to.
Let's try to do it. Let's see if it'll set. We've come this far, it'll make everything go smoother. It all worked until that guy touched it. That's all I know. When I left this morning, it was working. And then that guy started saying, I know some things.
That's a lawyer speaking.
That's a new law.
So, yeah, design team.
And what Microsoft?
I know. It's
Half of the people.
the laptop, it's a little too thin, so when you try to slide a USB in, it lifts the edge out.
It was a carbon device, not metal.
Disclaimer.
Maybe the battery was, yeah.
No, it's a brand new battery. No, other side.
Can we not use the mouse to go forward?
You should do it. You first stand there and talk.
Okay, inshallah, why don't we sit there and just continue?
Yeah.
Let's get back on track.
Okay, back up. All right. Okay, so why does it take 3 hours of your time? I don't know, we're just do it that way, right? We're gonna do it like we're in the band, right? You're the drummer, I'm gonna give you one of these, you're gonna hit the thing, and off we go. Okay. All right, so why does it take 3 hours? Well, I need about 45 minutes to an hour of your time to talk about what your goals are and what you want to accomplish. Okay? 45 minutes to an hour. That's it. Ringo. Got Ringo. I need about 7 to 10 days to get everything done because we do a really nice job. It's in a nice binder. All those different legal tools are separated out. And that way it's easier for you to understand. I like this. Do you have a day job? I'm just going to take care of it. And then we need to meet by Zoom or in my office. And that takes about 2 hours to go through everything. And the issue with analytical people is that they want to understand everything, and that's great. But first I need to, what we're building is a forest. It's a global solution. So I need the time to explain the complete solution to you so it makes sense, because what I'm doing is I'm taking you from what a friend told you or a neighbor told you, and sometimes I have to unlearn that information for you, and then I have to build you up. Now I'll give you an example. It's like if a neighbor was driving a car and got in a car accident, and they said, well, that happened to my neighbor. Driving cars are bad. I should never drive a car. Because all that happens is you get in car accidents. Right? So that's what happens when it comes to estate planning, is that people are told stories about something that happened to somebody else, and they think that happens all the time. Right? That's not true. Everybody in here is unique. Everybody's goals are similar, but how we get there is unique. Okay, so who are we? Who am I? Okay, Chris Benson. Who am I and what am I concerned about? Okay. Well, I'm a husband, so I'm concerned about my wife. If something were to happen to me, is my wife taken care of? Oh.
Hey, it's okay to go.
Yeah.
All right. More stuff. I'm all for it. Those of you who were here for the first one, before you did this beautiful remodel, that was entertaining. That was fun. This is a huge upgrade. A beautiful thing. So I'm a father. So I'm concerned about my children. I'm concerned if something happens to me or happens to my wife, that my children are taken care of. Right? I'm a son. I'm concerned about my parents. Right? I'm a brother. I'm concerned about my siblings. I'm concerned about my sister. So who are you? You're the same. Same. We're all the same. We all have the same concerns. So I know that. So what I built for you is what I've built for me and my family. But what I've done for you is I've taken it and I've tailored it to also address other concerns that you have so that you're always in compliance with Islamic law. So I've taken what I have and made it better for you. And I don't have different versions of this. I don't have the $80 million version. I don't have the $50,000 version. There's just my best work. That's it. Okay? So did you notice anything missing from the previous slide? Was there anything on there about age? My age, how old you are? No. Was there anything about the status of your health? You know, what, am I overweight? What my condition is? Was there anything about wealth? anything about the car you drive or the house you live in or how much money's in your bank? Nope. You know why? Because none of that stuff matters about what I'm talking about. Okay? People think estate planning has to do with stuff. It has to do with people. It has to do with your concerns as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a son, for the sisters, for you as a wife, as a mother, right? That's what it's all about. It's not about stuff. It's about what our concerns are and who we are. So why am I here? You need to comply with Islamic law for inheritance distribution. But you live in the United States, you also have to comply with Western law. So the big question is, how do you do both? And I can tell you my journey with Mohammed Sheikh's family. He came to me several years ago and said, look, I need to get this done. These are my concerns. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother, right? I need to do this and I need you to help me figure it out. So on our journey together to prepare the first version of what I prepared for him, it took me 2 years. It took me 2 years, okay? So those of you who work for Microsoft and stuff, I don't know how long it took you to design that computer. I'm sure you didn't just whip it out in a day. Or how many lines of code it takes to do this presentation. We have things going right now through Zoom. We have things going right now through Facebook. Those things take time and expertise to develop, right? It's not oh, let's do that and then knock it out the next day, right? So it took us 2 years to work on it. And then we were blessed to have Mufti Suhail join ICOR. And I was blessed to be able to have open discussions with him. And he reviewed what Muhammad and I and his wife had created for their family. And working as a team, a collaborative effort, we were able to come up with a better version. And that's the version that we use now. So that's why I'm here. Based on my expertise over 30 years doing estate planning, based on my journey with Mohammed and his lovely wife, Seema, with Mufti Suhail, other Islamic scholars who have reviewed my work. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help you. Now, the funny thing is about offering someone help is you can't make them take it. So as much as I want every person in this room and every person streaming and all the sisters next door to do this, I can't make you do that. Right? When I was here for prayer 3 weeks ago, Mufti Suhail, he's here all the time. He's trying to provide you guidance every day. And he knows some of you are taking it, and some of you, maybe not. But he doesn't give up. Every day he tries. So that's why I'm here again. I've done the presentation a few times, I've talked to many people. I'm here to help you. Some of you will accept my help. Some of you won't. I wish you would, but I'm not going to give up on you. So if that's next week or next month or next year or 5 years from now, I'm not giving up on you. And Mufti Suhail doesn't give up on you either. So just like you have to trust the pilot who's flying the airplane, or the doctor providing medical advice, or the person who's writing the code for the software, and apparently this is working well. So if you're on that team, good job.
You have to trust that the professional knows how to do their job better than you can. So in preparation of this presentation today, I didn't go into the code for PowerPoint and go, you know what, I really don't like that shade of blue. I'm gonna go put a few of my own lines of code in there so I can change that. I didn't do that. Why? Well, I don't know how. I mean, I barely know how to use the program. So just because you're smart at one thing doesn't mean that you're experienced at everything. And a famous phrase that I really like is that Einstein did not speak Spanish. That didn't make him a dumb guy, right? So I can't write software code. I worked on BASIC in high school and stuff. We made some little things and games and whatever. But I don't know what you guys do. I trust that when I turn on the computer, it's going to start. I trust that when I click this thing, that the slide changes, but instead I got to point to him. I trust that PowerPoint's going to work, right? That's the deal, is that if you think you can do this better than me, go get it, right? I'm all for it. You hire me, great. You hire somebody else, fine. You want to do it on your own? Fine. Do something. But the deal is that what you have to do is so technical compared to other people who live in the United States. You've got to comply with Western law and Islamic law. And I can tell you there are places where those things collide. And what I've done is I've merged them together so that they all work. But if you think you can do a better job than me, do it. Do something. Protect your family. If you spend 3 hours with me, I can knock it out for you, right? But if you think you can write your own stuff in less than that and do a better job, go ahead. So I'm going to explain this in 7 minutes, and what I really want to focus on today is I want to focus on children who are under the age of 18. So I'm going to tell you a framework, and we're going to go through things quickly. Don't worry about memorizing stuff. I'm just showing you the concepts of things, right? How things work. I'll fly the plane. You tell me where you want to go, I will fly you there, right? But I want to show you the structure. So here we go. There's different tools. There's not just one document that does everything. So what are the tools that make up a complete estate plan? Well, first there's the trust. And the trust is very important for every person who has children under the age of 18 or owns real estate or both. And I'm going to tell you why. So I'm going to go through some things quickly so that we can get to why it's so important for the children. The second tool I create for you is a will. But a will puts you into court. It puts you into the legal system. And it takes about a year to a year and a half to work your way through that system. Just like designing this computer or designing software takes time and some thought, working your way through the legal system takes about a year and a half. The way I do it, you skip all of that. Okay. Third tool. Financial power attorney. So if you're unable to make your own financial decisions, then you've got people in place to make financial choices for you. A healthcare power attorney. So if you're unable to make your own healthcare decisions, then you have people in place to make healthcare choices for you. A HIPAA healthcare release. We live in a society where privacy issues are obviously very important on many different levels, but one of them has to do with healthcare. So we've come to a point where just because you are somebody's spouse or they're your father or they're your brother or sister, that the doctor should talk to you, even though you might be very concerned about them and the only person they're available to help them. They won't talk to you because they can't talk to you under the HIPAA healthcare release. Living will. That's with end-of-life choices. So if two physicians say that death is imminent, If there's anything you want withheld or withdrawn, like if you don't want dialysis or blood transfusion, you can individually make those choices while you are alive and competent and of sound mind. We also do a guardianship power of attorney for you. And the guardianship power of attorney for you has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with healthcare. It just means who takes care of you as a human, who makes sure you have a place to live and food to eat and clothes to wear. We run into this a lot of times with stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's situations. Okay? And then the 8th tool we prepare for you is if you have minor children, we prepare a guardianship power of attorney for your minor children as well. So if something were to happen to both you and your spouse, God forbid, you have somebody in place to take care of them. So there's no gaps in this plan. We have somebody to take care of your child's money. We have somebody to take care of your child as a person. And it also includes the ability for them to make medical decisions for them. Because one thing that's unique between Western law and Islamic law is that under Western law, if you adopt a child, that child is considered to be naturally born. That is your child. But under Islamic law, an adopted child is not considered a child. So that's just one of the things where things kind of conflict, but I have made them work together. Okay. Thanks. So revocable living trust. We're going to do a lot of clicking fast on this one. We're going to go. You know, Beatles, right? Yeah. So there's 3 parts to a trust. There's the settlor, the trustor, that's the person who creates a trust. There's the trustee, that's the president of the company. There's the beneficiaries. So if you're married, you and your spouse are all 3. You're both the trustor that create the trust, you're both the presidents of the company as the trustee, and you're both the beneficiaries. And you can put limitations on those powers as well. So if you both want to have equal management authority, great. If you wanted to say, well, if the husband dies before the wife, then here's a limit on the power. Or if the wife dies before the husband, here's a limit on the power. It goes both ways. But it's up to you. And that's where everybody becomes unique, right? Tell me what your concerns are, and then I can accomplish those goals. So we're going to go through the advantages. We're going to go through pretty quick. So you can just... So it's effective immediately the day it's signed. If you have minor children, you have somebody in place to manage their money. In the event of incapacity, such as stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's, you've got somebody in place without a court order to manage your assets for your benefit. Trust is private. It's nobody's business what you own, what the value of your assets are, or if you owe money to someone. But probate court is completely public. You have to disclose all of your assets and all of your liabilities. The whole world knows what's going on. Irrevocable trust is cost effective in the long run because it completes the avoid, if you're married, for 2 probates, not just 1. So here's where I want to pause for a second. People don't understand title. So everything has title. Who has title to this thing that I'm going to throw away when this is over? Who owns it? Okay. All it means is ownership. Or who owns that table? Or who owns this building? Or the house you live in, or the car you drive, or the money in the bank. Everything has title. Well, people who are married are under the assumption that if one spouse dies, that the surviving spouse automatically gets everything. And that's not true. It's not true in Western law. And it's also not true under Islamic law. And that's the deal. Islamic faith planning is very family tree oriented. It depends on who's alive and who has passed when an event occurs. And so that's the unique thing that I've created, and that's what Mufti Suhail told you about, is I've provided for an automatic adjustment so that the trustee of your trust can modify or address your beneficiaries and their rightful inheritance percentages under Islamic law. And there's also a dispute resolution where if there's any dispute among the beneficiaries as to their rightful percentages or their rightful heirs, that is determined by a panel of muftis. So that if there's any conflicts, it's resolved under Islamic law, it's not resolved under Western law. And if you think you can write it better than I can in less than 3 hours, go get it. Took me 2 years. So knock yourself out. Trusts are difficult to contest, and that's what I'm saying. My Islamic trusts have adjustment based on your family tree. If you own property in a different state, the trust eliminates the need to do a probate in a different state. So some of you own properties, not just in Washington, but in other states as well. It allows for post-mortem tax estate planning. In Washington, we have our own probate tax, and it's this year, it's $2,193,000 per person. And it adjusts all the time. And this is where people get a little bit confused. You're thinking, well, I don't have $2 million. That's not the point. The point is that if you have more than this, then what I have prepared for you allows the surviving spouse to make changes so that you can avoid Washington and state inheritance tax. You don't have to have $2 million to do the planning, as we talked about. It's just if you do, I've protected you also in that event. Thanks. All real estate is stepped up to the value date of death, so it doesn't matter when you bought the house, it doesn't matter if you put in on a new roof or if you did a kitchen remodel. All of that goes away, and the value is stepped up to the value date of death, so you transfer more wealth tax-free to the rightful heirs. So you save attorney fees, you save report costs, you save delay, and they get the value stepped up to the value date of death, so you avoid capital gains, so you can transfer the wealth, more wealth, to the intended beneficiaries. You can change your mind and make amendments, but we've got to start somewhere. And so this is where we run into the paralysis by analysis. We overthink things so much that we get nothing done. And so what I tell you and what I tell my clients is let's start somewhere. Think long, think wrong, right? Let's get something done. And then once you have something done, you feel good about it. You know that something's there to protect your spouse. You know you have something to protect your children. And if your mind changes or you want to change over time, your family tree changes, we can adjust with it. But first we got to create something that we can change. So disadvantages. So you don't need 10 reasons why. You only need one reason, right? This is a good idea. Disadvantage. You do have to do a little work. You've got to transfer your assets into the trust, and you need to change the beneficiaries on your retirement account and your life insurance. But it's very simple to do. It's cost effective, but that's really the only downside because it's rare. You're like, well, okay, this all sounds good. What's the catch? What's the downside? What's the bad thing, right? Well, you do have to do a little extra work. It's no big deal. Okay. So here's how trusts work, and this we're going to burn through quickly. Don't worry about taking notes, but I'm just going to show you the structure. Here we go. Next. There's you. There's Islamic law. There's your parents. There's your spouse. There's your children. You got siblings. You have title of assets, bank accounts, personal property, cars, real estate. Okay. So I don't oversimplify this thing, but a trust is a box. Okay. And everything that's in the box, there's special rules that apply to it. Everything that's in the box doesn't have to go through probate. You have a succession in place of the person who's the president of the company. So it's like a company, it's a thing. It's a thing separate from you that you control. So you are the trustee, you're the president. You manage all the assets. Separate property remains separate property. So if you have a husband and a wife, and the wife moves her separate property into the trust, it's still separate property, and it specifically says that in the trust. Or if a husband moves his separate property into the trust, it remains separate property. The husband can move it back out of the trust if they want. The wife can move it back out if they want. It's freedom both ways. If it's community property, then it's community property out, it's community property in. So it doesn't change its character. You pick a successor trustee and a backup trustee. So you pick who you want to step into your shoes if something happens to you. You designate the beneficiaries according to Islamic law. So you're always in compliance with Islamic law. And you move the title of the assets into the trust. So bank accounts go in the trust, personal property, cars, real estate. There you go. Next. So we're going to go through these kind of quickly. Directed to physician is also known as a living will. Next. So if two physicians say that you're going to pass, this is not a DNR. Okay, a DNR is do not resuscitate. A DNR is I'm under some medical duress. Don't do anything to save me. This is a living will. This is the exact opposite. This is we have done everything we can to save you. We've tried everything there is, and you're going to pass. So what do you want? Do you want pain medication? Do you want dialysis? You can individually you can choose what you do or don't want. That way you decide when you're healthy what life-saving measures you would want to use. Okay, next. Financial power of attorney. Okay. In Washington, it changed in 2017. So if you have a power of attorney prior to 2017, it's grandfathered in. But the new stuff is that you appoint somebody who has the authority to act on your behalf if you become incapacitated. Here's the problem with it, is that I could appoint Muhammad as my attorney in fact for my bank account. And he could take that piece of paper and go to the bank and he could tell them that Chris has charged me with this duty to take money from his account and pay his real estate taxes or pay his insurance bill or whatever. The bank can say no. So just because you pick somebody as your power of attorney, the other person doesn't have to deal with them. They can refuse and say no. So does that mean you shouldn't have a power of attorney? No, I didn't say that. You should have a power of attorney. I'm just saying, here's one of the problems with having a power of attorney. Because a lot of times people will come to me and say, well, I just want a will and a power of attorney. Well, that's cool. That's like saying, I want a car, but I only want 2 tires. Well, it really works better with 4. You can put 2 tires on a car, and you might want to circle or scrape the axle or whatever. You're not going to go very fast, but that's probably not the best way to go. So we do 4 different powers of attorney for you. We do financial, medical, guardianship. The disadvantages are that it's insufficient and they all terminate upon death of the principal. So that's where a lot of people get caught, is they have a will, they have this power of attorney, and somebody dies. But when we die, the power of attorney goes away, and all you have left is the will. And the will is just a piece of paper, right? So for the will to be valid, you now have to file, you have to hire a lawyer, you have to go to court, you have to have a judge approve it, you have to have a judge appoint somebody as the personal representative of the state. That takes time, that takes money, right? Guardianship, power of attorney for minor children. This is really what I want to focus on today. This is how we're going to come full circle. The state where the minor child resides decides what is in the best interest of the child. And those are the statutes. You can designate somebody to be the guardian of your child that is effective upon your disability or upon your death. So that's what I've created for you, does both. Okay? They can also authorize them to consent to medical or treatment or surgery, right? So the plans that I create, there's no gaps. We've got somebody to take care of your child's money. We've got somebody to take care of your child as a human. We've got somebody to be able to make medical decisions for your child, right? Continuity, no delay, no cost, and seamless for them. The attorney, in fact, does not have the power to change or revoke any estate plan. So that's key, because you decide what's the terms of your trust. There's certain things happen. And the attorney, in fact, on behalf of your child, the guardian, can't change those rules. You made those rules because that was your concern. This is the way we wanted to handle things. Somebody can't change that back. Now, the cool thing that I've created, once again, in the trust, though, it says that they can consult with an Islamic Mufti and change the beneficiaries and pursuant to Islamic law, so you're always in compliance with Islamic law. Who did this? Is that you? I mean, I went there this morning. Who designed this feature? You need to leave and go fix that bug, man. That's what I'm talking about. It's a team deal. It's not on the screen there. Somebody did this thing. Okay.
Another question. You mentioned attorney in fact. What does that mean?
Attorney in fact is just a. So for the sisters, I'm always conscious of you. The question that was asked was the phrase attorney in fact. What does that mean? It's just the way we talk. It's appointing an agent. So if I pick you to be my healthcare decider, and I pick him, I was loving you as the operator for a while, and I'm a little iffy. But I choose him to operate the computer. You know, so you have healthcare. He's got computers, and somebody else has got a guardian. It just means that person. Right, thanks. Okay. So whether you hire or not, our firm or not, this is the number one mistake. If you remember nothing else of what I've said today, this is the one thing you need to protect against. Okay? If you have a minor child and you name that child as the beneficiary on your life insurance or your retirement account, they are considered legally incompetent by the state of Washington. The state of Washington requires that a court-appointed guardian is appointed on behalf of your child. That person has to already be on a court-approved list of guardians. And now somebody that you do not know and that you did not pick will manage your child's money until they're 18, and then after your child turns 18, they have to go back to court, prove that they're over the age of 18 in order to get their money. And so during that time period, whoever is appointed as the guardian also hires a lawyer that you did not pick, and they use your child's money to pay for their services during that time period. Silence is powerful. You like drop the bomb and just say nothing. That's a big deal. You got minor kids, you have life insurance, you got a retirement account. That's bad. Right? But if you do it my way, what you do is you designate the trust as the contingent beneficiary. You designate the spouse as the primary or somebody, and then you designate the trust as the contingent for your life insurance. And another thing, and Mufti Suhail can speak to this more, maybe you already have, because we talked about it at prayer 3 weeks ago, is that if your company provides you life insurance at no cost to you, it's okay, right? Yeah, it's fine. I have a lot of clients who work for companies who deny life insurance because you think that it's not allowed under Islamic law. It is. If your employer provides it as a benefit and you have not signed up for it, on Monday you need to sign up for it. And you need to designate beneficiary. It's free to you. It's more money for your family. All right. Okay, couple things. So, if you have ARAG insurance or MetLife, they pay for 100% of the attorney fee. All you have to pay for is $150 for every deed that we have to prepare for you, and you got to pay the county recording fee, which is $214.50. If you wanted to do it by Zoom, which a lot of you do, because people live here in Redmond or farther north or outlying areas, the Zoom signing works great. There's $75 because it's $25 for me to send it to you, the package. It's $25 to send it back, and then I gotta send it back to you again. So it's 25, 75 bucks. And that way you wind up with all of your originals, plus they send you a scanned copy also. If you don't have a legal insurance plan, it's the same price for all of you. It's the same, and I don't charge Islamic clients more, even though the plans I prepare for you are more complicated than what I prepare for a traditional Western family. It's the same. It's $2,500. Don't ask me for a discount, right? Okay. I don't care how much your house is worth. I don't care how much life insurance you got. It takes me the same amount of time to prepare it for you. In fact, for all of you, it takes me a little bit longer time because there's some more stuff I've got to do. But I don't charge you a premium for that, right? So it's the same. And then you just pay $150 per deed and the 75 FedEx. If you would like to retain our firm, all you need to do is send me an email. Send me an email with your name, contact information, if you have AROG insurance, if you have MetLife insurance, or you don't. And then we will send you the instructions. Okay, no problem. It's that simple. It's estate planning made easy. Next. So I'd like to thank all of you for your time today. Thank you, Mufti Suhail. Thank you, Mohammed, and your wife, Seema. Thanks for operating the computer. You did a good, okay job. We still got to figure out this thing. I don't know what that's all about. I got some bucks. I got some more to do. I always love coming here, and I'm blessed to be a part of your community and to help you out. Be well, my friends. Now I will take any questions that you have. Sisters in the other room, if you can communicate those to me or somebody, and then we will walk around, and if you have a question here, we'll use the microphone and I'll go.
Yeah. So. So when you mentioned that when you put a child as a beneficiary or assign someone that's in charge of their money basically until they're 18, what does that mean in charge of their money?
Wait, hold on. Whoever's on Zoom, if you could hang on a second. I can hear you, but we have a brother in the room asking a question, and then I'll come back to the Zoom person. Okay, go ahead.
So you said that if you appoint a minor as a beneficiary,
yes,
someone's in charge of their money until they're 18.
What? No, you get to pick the age.
Okay.
And under Islamic law, it can vary, right? It doesn't have to be 18 or 25 or whatever. It depends on that particular person. So you get to pick the age. What I was telling you is under Western law, if you don't do my thing, then here's what happens. Under the Islamic planning that I do for your community, you pick the age. You pick 21, 25, 30, 35. And that's allowed. And Mufti Suhail can speak to it. It's been a couple years since we've had this conversation. But it depends on the beneficiary. Okay, now the person on Zoom, go ahead and ask your question, and I will repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
Right, okay, so here's the question. What the person on Zoom asked the question, and he says, If I have MetLife who is managing my money, do I just have to tell them that you're my attorney? It's two different things, okay? MetLife is a big company. They sell insurance, they have car insurance, homeowners insurance, boat insurance, they do financial management. They also have a MetLife legal insurance plan. So just because your 401k is managed by MetLife does not mean that you have also purchased MetLife legal insurance. Does that answer your question? It's two different things. You're welcome. Somebody in the room? So I'll take somebody in the room and then I'll ask for somebody on Zoom.
Where's the mic? So, I have done the,
Sorry, brothers. People in the Zoom. So, we'll alternate the questions between the live audience and the Zoom. So, hold on to your questions. We'll alternate between the room audience here and the Zoom questions. So,
I had done the planning with you a couple of years back. So, has something changed from then to now that needs amends or anything?
No, the changes. So for Sheikh, it's been 6 years since we started. And then Mufti Suhail, you've been here 5? No?
7 years. Almost 7 years.
You've been 7? Wow. Well, at least I'm concerned. I keep track, right? I was close. Ask somebody else how long he's been there. They don't. I was close. So since my meeting with Mufti Suhail, I've made some minor revisions and refinements. So here's the deal, is that I used to have stacks of paper because I went through all of these permeations. It depends if you're married, if you have, 1 son, 2 daughters, your mother's alive, but your father has passed, So I was doing all these permeations. So the earlier versions are correct. Because I did the math with Mufti Suhail by hand. Okay. Now what I do is I now do the based on today, who's alive, what the relationships are, and I've added the automatic adjustment. So I had the automatic adjustment back then as well, but I've simplified it. And this is going to sound dumb, but this is true. So I had stacks of papers in my meetings with Mufti Suhail and reading Islamic literature and Islamic legal argument. And there's a lot of views on this. There's a lot of spins on it. And sometimes when there's so many options, you get paralyzed. You're like, I don't know. I could pick, this color or this color or this color or this color to paint the wall, right? You could paint this wall any color you want. But you got to pick one, or we're never getting paint on the wall, right? So, based on a collaborative effort, this is the path we picked, and then we refined that path. So the original stuff we did is fine and has it. It's a little bit simpler now because I was driving to work one day and I'm like, how am I going to handle this for each individual person to make it fit? I mean, this is very time consuming for me. And I thought, I'll put an automatic adjustment, so it's all automatically adjusted under Islamic law, and if there's any conflict, we'll resolve it under Islamic law with a panel of muftis, and there you go. It's just like sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution as opposed to, how can I go from here out that door? Well, I could walk this way first and then around the wall and go out the door. I could go this way and go down there and around, or I could just walk straight that way to the door. So I was kind of walking this way and that way, and I was getting out the door, and now I figured out, I just walk this way. So it's all
So this question, should we do or not? I think we should do.
fine. No, it's good.
That's it.
We're good.
So rest of the same thing. I did mine a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But then children, some of them were back then, they were not mine anymore. Maybe kids turned 18. On your children,
So, yeah.
or, I guess.
And then, what's our process to go back and make sure that we still have everything covered? How do we do that?
You're still covered. So if the ages of your children change, there's nothing you need to do at all. It's just there's provisions that if they're under a certain age, then these happen. And once they attain that age, then those provisions no longer apply. So for me, my kids are 30, 28, and 26. Okay. I didn't put them in positions of power as my successor trustees until the oldest was, I did about 3 years ago. I didn't do it like right at 21. I waited until 27. Yeah. So that's if you want to make a change, your gifting is fine. If you want to put those people who were minors now into a position of power, successor, then we need to make some changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is you talked about the 401k and other accounts. Right? I'm not sure if I can actually make those changes. So what are the things that I need to go back and check that I have not done or have completed or not?
Okay, so for the sisters in the room, we have a situation where when the original plan was done, some of the children are under the age of 18, and now they're over the age of 18. Are all of your children over the age of 18 now?
2 of them are.
2 of them are not.
So one of them was not, she is now.
Okay, so here's what you do, is you do a change of beneficiary form for your life insurance, your 401k or whatever. You name your spouse as primary, you name the trust as contingent, and you leave it that way until the youngest child, the youngest, is over the age of 18. And then you change it again, and then you put wife as primary, and then you put all of your adult children as the contingent.
It looks like I have to make an appointment talking.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, send me an email, I'll guide you through it, no problem.
Because the same question, when you get new kids, should we revise the trust as well to add them to the existing trust?
Yeah, so if you have new children, then we just do we have to do an amendment we do 2 things. We amend the will to add them as a child, otherwise it's called what's a credited child in the state of Washington. So we add them to the will, and we add them as a beneficiary, an amendment to the trust. Very simple. I email it to you, you print it out, sign it in front of a couple witnesses and notary, we're good.
This is last in the line of question. Now we have more cryptocurrencies going on. Can we add cryptocurrency to the whole trust as well? Before we
Yeah.
401k?
Crypto? Sure. Yeah. So, Coinbase and different ones, it depends on how you set up the account. So you can either set up either do one of 2 things. Either make sure you name a payable and death beneficiary, or what's best is if the trust is the holder or the owner of that crypto account. Yeah, that's the better approach. All right.
Can we take questions from Zoom?
Yeah, so let's take questions from Zoom.
I want to switch to the Zoom questions.
Okay, Guardian is not U.S. citizen.
There's a lady from here, right? So I'm going to present these questions to you. So we have one question here is regarding estate tax. So can the revocable living trust or any other document you provide help in preserving the full exemption for a married couple even after one or the couple die? Currently, the Washington State estate tax kicks in on estates worth more than 2.193 billion. If married, each person gets a 2.193 billion exemption. Do we need to set up a credit shelter trust to keep the full 4.4 million exemption? How does that work?
Yeah, that's what I do. Playing flies. That's exactly it. So I'm gonna give you an example. How's this thing working, by the way? Is it still good? You still good on this? Yeah. The translation. Okay. So I'm gonna give you. This is a real world example, and it's big numbers. So just because I'm going to be using big numbers, don't think that what I do is something you don't need. Okay? Because when I created this estate plan, these numbers did not exist. And over a period of 20 years, this couple that I'm going to tell you about accumulated a lot of wealth. And I'm going to tell you how it worked. So the magic number in Washington is $12 million. 12 million. Okay. So I had a guy die in October, and he was in his late 90s, okay? So sitting on 12 million bucks. So what do? Well, what we did is we took $2 million of assets and we moved it into what's called the family trust. And we used the person's $2,193,000 exemption. It's a use it or lose it exemption. Because you don't want to put exactly 2193 in, because that's like when you have the answers to the test and you get like every question right. You know, you want to miss like one on purpose, still get an A, but it doesn't look like a cheat, right? So we moved 2 million over here, and we moved 10 million over to the wife, because the amount of wealth that you leave to the spouse is unlimited. And I hate to say it, I used to use Bill and Melinda as an example, but I can't use it as an example anymore. And I used to use Jeff Bezos as an example. But take some other rich guy that's still married. Yeah, maybe that's the kiss of death, right? I shouldn't do that. So, back to the real world. So the amount of money that you leave to your spouse is unlimited. There's no tax. So we then took $10 million and that all goes into the marital trust. Well, wife is also in her 90s. You know, she's 95 or 96. And now she's sitting on 10 million bucks. Well, if she dies, we can only exempt $2,193,000, and so the $7,113 or whatever is taxed. At, you know, yada yada. It's about 500 grand. Poof, up in smoke. $500,000. You know, price of living in Washington. So what we did instead was we had her give away, out of the 10 million, we had her give away 8 million. So she sat there. It's kind of cool to watch people write big checks. I don't get to do it. It's kind of cool when you can see it. So she sits there in my office and she writes out a check for $2 million to one kid, another $2 million to another, $2 million to another, $2 million to another. Here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go. And then she files an estate gift tax return, because during your lifetime, you can give away $13 million during your lifetime. So we file a gift tax return saying, well, in December, I gave away $8 million. So the $8 million comes off your $13 million, so she's got $5 more million she can give away during her lifetime, which we're cool with because she's got $2 million left. She's still alive now. But when she passes, she's going to be under the gap. And so that way we transferred $12 million of wealth to the family without paying any tax. That stays with us in the room. Don't go. It's not unlawful to use the law to your advantage, but there's lots of cases that say that. So that's just a smart thing you can do. So the question that was asked is, that's how it works. Yes, there's lots of different slang that's used. AB trust, credit shelter trust, above ground, below ground trust. I mean, there's all sorts of slang. They're kind of all describing the same thing. Long answer, but that's a great question, and whoever asked that question has been doing a lot of Google law research. And so stop that and give me a call instead, and let's just get her done.
You're gonna take a Zoom person and see Asima's iPhone. She has a hand up.
Okay, let's do it.
She has a hand up. So Asima, you want to go
I can hear some more. Okay, so the question by the sister, and I'm getting a little feedback, so if you could kill your on the other side, that'd be great. Thank you. So the question from the sister is, let's say we do the estate plan here, and then you move to another state, how does it impact it? And the answer is, what I create is completely portable. The reason is that the requirements, the legal requirements for the West Coast states, so Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, are the highest standard in the United States. So my stuff works everywhere. Some other states like Louisiana, Mississippi, places like that, don't work so good. So my stuff's good everywhere. So if you move, no problem. In fact, what we have a lot of times is we'll have where one spouse dies and we'll have a high net worth individual where they will relocate their residence to Nevada. And the reason you pick Nevada instead of Arizona or California is Nevada does not have doesn't have state income tax. It doesn't have its own state probate tax. It uses the federal probate exemption of $13 million per person. Good problems to have. More money, more problem. So yeah, get some feedback. Yeah, so it's good for Texas as well. Like I said, it applies to all 50 states. This allows what's called post-mortem tax estate planning. What that means is after somebody dies, the surviving spouse can then look at the assets and the prevailing tax code and then make a smart decision. And you've got 9 months to do that. You have 9 months to make the election, and you have 12 months to execute it. So, well, like I said, sometimes you fall into this analysis by paralysis. There's so many hypotheticals. The takeaway is what I create for you is valid everywhere. Okay? Question from the floor? Go ahead.
So if looking at a company perspective, you have partners in a company, and you've set up an ESOP, which is you know what an ESOP is, right?
Yeah, it's an employee stock option.
Stock option program.
Yeah.
If the board of directors who own, the majority of those shares, and let's say you pass away, but those shares do not get dispersed until 6-7 years down the road.
Yeah.
How do you build that into the estate?
Yeah.
Is that similar to what you were talking about, the 401k, where
Yeah.
you establish your beneficiary
Yeah.
in that sort of criteria?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So we live in a complex world, but this is not complex, what I'm getting ready to say. Assets fall into two categories: pre-tax and after-tax. That's it. I'd like you to think it's something bigger than that. It's not. So, pre-tax investments, that's where an asset that you have where you have not paid the government any income tax or anything on it. So 401k, SEP, IRA, ESOP possibly, whatever, okay? That stays in your name and you name payable on death beneficiaries. And in that case, you would want to name the spouse, and then the trust is contingent as a contingent beneficiary, so that the trust could enforce and collect those benefits when those ripen, okay? After-tax investments, real estate, your primary house, car, boat, plane. I had a guy buy 2 helicopters last month. That's after-tax investment, right? Why do you need 2 helicopters? He says, well, because sometimes they need a lot of maintenance, they break down. I'm like, dude, why would you fly in something that's going to maybe break down when you're flying it, right? But anyway, that's what he did. After-tax investments go in the name of the trust, okay? So that's it. If it's something where you went, you earned some money, you sold a property, you cashed in some stock, you paid the government its tax, it's now in your bank account. That's what we call after-tax. You want your bank account in the name of the trust. And then you take that and you go buy car, boat, plane, another house, anything. That also goes to the trust. Yeah. Great question.
Next question.
Question from Zoom coming in.
So I have a quick
So-
question. Quick question from Zoom. So,
Wait, I got a guy talking in my ear. So here, hold on. Guy talking in my ear, hold on 1 second. And then we're gonna take that and I'll come back to you, sir.
okay, so this is, can someone outside of Washington also contact you
or if it is strictly?
Yeah, so I'm licensed to practice law in 4 states, which is rare, okay? I can only represent clients who reside in the state of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, or Arizona. That's it. Each state has its own policing powers and governing bodies, and so most lawyers are only admitted into 1 state. There are a few that are admitted into 2. I'm admitted in 4, which is uber rare. And the reason is I have to keep up with all of the continuing legal education requirements for all 4 states all the time when I do the reporting. So it's kind of, I don't know what this is going to say, but it's a pain in my rump. But it's totally worth it. But that's it.
It's clear enough.
Yeah, okay, you cleaned it up. Yeah. So that's the best I can do for you on that. Exactly. If you're a resident of those 4 states, we're good. Okay, the
I
person.
just want to.
Wait, I got a guy right here. So
Okay, I just want to revise some ground rules. Okay, so you'll take a question from, since we're done with the written question on Zoom, the next we'll move on to those questions that are coming in live on Zoom. One thing I want to, just clarify with those that are on Zoom is if you have written your question in the chat, then don't repeat your question over the call, right? We'll come to your question, inshallah, over the chat. So how it works is that we'll take this question now that's coming in live on Zoom. Then we'll move on to a floor question, and finally we'll move on to the written questions. So 3 tiers. So one is on the live Zoom, the question is coming in live. Then one from the floor, and one that is written here in the chat. Okay, go ahead.
go ahead, sir. Okay, so good question. So here's the question from Zoom, and the brother said, I have a bank account, it's a joint bank account with my wife, and I also have a 401k and some other investments. And if he were to die, then she has control of everything. So first thing is, each investment stands on its own, okay? So the joint bank account is totally separate than the 401k. In the situation where you have a joint bank account, and if one spouse were to die, that's true, the surviving spouse would have control of that bank account. That is true. The problem is that person is now a single person. And if that person were to die, then we have to go through probate, right? So it saves one step, but it's not a global solution. It's a little bit of a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term global fix, okay? The 401k is a totally separate investment. It's a pre-tax investment. If you name the spouse as the primary and you were to pass and the spouse were to survive, yes, it would go to the spouse. But if you were to die in a common accident, who's the contingent beneficiary? The biggest mistake that we see is that people don't designate a contingent beneficiary. They're only thinking about them dying. And if I'm married, I'm thinking about my spouse, and my spouse will take care of my kids. That's a good thought, but that's not a complete thought, right? Oh, wait, so let me answer the question because he's got another contingency, and then we'll finish up. So the deal is if you would name the spouse as the primary, if your children were over the age, all of your children were over the age of 18, you would name them as the contingent. If you leave a blank line, then there has to be a probate on behalf of your children to go they gotta go spend 10 grand in a year and a half to go get money they could have got for free, so that's a bad result. If you name the children and any one of them is under the age of 18, then there has to be a court-appointed guardian for that person who manages their money until that person turns 18. That's the complete answer to the first part. So now he's got a contingent part, and then we'll move along.
Chris, do you
Wait.
want to move to the?
He's talking in my ear.
Once you're done.
Okay, part 2, sir. It's your turn. That's it? We're good? Okay, thank you. All right, moving along.
So what I was going to say is if you move to the audio of the computer, you don't have to repeat the question. If you move from the earphones to the audio of the computer.
Oh, I have them linked to my computer.
Switch off the computer. You can get it from the computer itself.
Oh, you want to do it? Yeah, fine.
Let's just keep it going.
Okay.
Let's just keep it going. Let's just keep going. Anybody have a question off the?
Yeah, I love Muhammad Sheikh. He's like, hey, come on, gotta keep the show rolling. Let's go.
So, quick question. Is it possible to get an Islamic will without spouse's participation?
You have to repeat it. Is it possible to get an Islamic
Islamic
will
without spouse's participation?
without?
Spouse participation.
Just the person, individual, the husband himself, for example.
Yes. So, just like offering help to people, you can't make them take it. You can only offer it and be ready, willing, and able when they say, yes, I will accept your help. The same is true of spouses, is that you can be married and one spouse may choose not to participate. You can be married and do your own estate plan. But it only handles title of the assets that you own. You still have a problem with the other spouse. So we do lots of things. And I mean, I'm in here with the brothers. I'm just telling you, guys are the worst. We're the worst. We're bulletproof, right? We plan on living forever, right? So far, so good, right? You know, what's the big deal? Women, the sisters, are better planners because they're concerned what happens to this guy. We're not so much worried about us, but we're worried about the family. Well, you got to be worried about you. So I do a lot of estate planning where the husband will not participate and the wife will do her own estate plan. We'll do the trust and the will and financial power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney and all that to make it easy for somebody to take care of her. But if she owns half of the real estate, that only handles half of the real estate. She made it easy for everybody else. But if the husband were to pass, then everybody else has got a problem. But yeah, you can't control your spouse. You can't make them do something smart. If I could, I'd have a lot better. I'm glad my wife's not zoomed in on us. Anyway.
Okay, can we move on to the next question?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so if a married couple set up a revocable living trust, do all the assets placed in the trust become joint ownership? However, in Islam, each spouse has their own possessions and the inheritance for each is different. If the husband dies first, his assets are divided according to Islamic law, and all does not go to the surviving wife. And the same applies if the wife dies first. Only her assets are distributed to her heirs, and all does not go to the surviving husband. How does this work with a trust set up by a couple, or should each person in a couple have a separate living trust?
Yeah, I already thought about that. Done. If I had the clicker thing working, I gotta get a new one. I could go to the slide, and it's the slide where it says separate property retains its separate property character. So we provide that if the wife puts in separate property, the wife can move it out. If the husband puts in separate property, he can move it out. Separate property retains separate property character. We address the death of the first spouse. If the husband dies first, here are the distributions to be made. If the wife dies first, here are the distributions to be made. If you die in a common accident, here are the distributions to be made. And then the next part of the trust is after the second person were to pass, here are the distributions to be made. Excellent question. Already thought about it. Got it figured out.
So just, to clarify this, assuming that husband and wife own a property, right, 50-50, they married in communal property, or they just they married with the state. So when the husband passes away, for example, then 50% is owned by the wife already, right? And then she gets an Islamic share on top of that.
Correct.
Okay. So that would be, then it basically it's up to spouses to, ensure that if they own it 50-50, whether they have agreed to own it 50-50 Islamically, or is it just something on paper? By default, we should know that when you marry in communal property, then it's owned 50-50, right? Even though the husband might have contributed all the money towards that property, but if you are married in communal property, by law, it's going to be deemed as you own it 50-50, right? So you need to designate that. The ideal solution is husband and wife come to the mutual agreement that whatever we own, it is on 50-50. This year forms a partnership, which is also known as Mufawa law or Shirkat Mufawa law in Islamic law. So it's something that they can mutually agree upon, just to make it ensure that it is done in compliance with Islamic law. So, but if spouses want to maintain the individual property as they want or as they have, meaning that they do not want it to be mixed with the others, then they need to do an anti-nuptial contract, right, out of communal property to maintain that. Or they should have some documentation explicitly saying that this property, I don't know how far that will go in law, but let's say, for example, they are married in communal property, they haven't done an anti-nuptial contract, but they both have a written agreement and they say that this property is owned solely by the husband. Can they do, how far would that go?
Yeah, you can do it. You just have to do it the right way. So we have lots of situations where a property or an asset, because it applies to any asset, but everybody always talks about houses, that you can buy it while you're married and agree that it's separate property of one spouse. We do that all the time, but you have to do it by a deed. It's not just some piece of paper. It has to be done with the deed and recorded with the county. It's easy to do. You just got to do it the right way. We do that all the time. We have people who are married where the husband has separate bank accounts. It's all separate property. Even though the money that's coming in that's earned, the wages that are coming in are community property, when they're earned, you can take them and deposit them into a separate property account. Yeah. So it allows that flexibility.
Is the default 50-50 though?
The presumption is that if you acquire an asset during the course of marriage, it is presumed to be community property.
So if you don't do anything, it's distributed 50-50.
That's right. But you have the tools available to do it different. And it's easy to do. If that's your goal, then that's your goal.
You take the question on the Zoom.
Question over Zoom. Go ahead. It's your turn, Zoom. Can't hear anything.
Okay, we can go. Nobody answered.
Okay, go ahead. We'll go ahead.
Say the property, the home still under the mortgage, can we put the home in the trust?
Yes, it has nothing to do with liens. It only has to do with title.
Do the banks accept that?
Sure. You bet. Yep, and because the trust is revocable, you can move it in and out all you want. So there's a technical default. If you move it in, if you transfer, it's called the anti-alienation clause. If you transfer title of the asset, the entire debt is due payable right now, immediately, even if all payments are current. They don't enforce it when it comes to estate planning because you can cure the default right away. You move it into the trust, they say, hey, you're in default because you transferred title, you can move it right back out, and now you're in compliance. So in 31 years, that has never happened because everybody knows it's for estate planning purposes. You're personally signed on the promissory note and the deed of trust anyway, so who cares? Yes, I thought I saw a question.
Let's switch to the written questions here first, and then we can go back to the floor. So there is one about this is I think I'll take this one. Is that the wife is not happy with the 1/8 share of inheritance, what are the options?
Yeah, you take this one.
MashaAllah, somebody answered very wisely. That if the wife is not happy with 1/8, then ask her to read Surah Nisa. Get out of my anyway. So, yeah, the 1/8 that is the default share that is submitted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason why you don't get also the share of the females, right? It's 2-to-1. For example, a person passes away, he leaves behind a son and a daughter, then that will be distributed between them 2-to-1 on the ratio of 2-to-1. That is the male gets double the share compared to the female, right? So the question is usually asked that why is it so, and why is the wife getting so little, etc. So the thing is that in Islam, a person should always remember that there is never an obligation on a woman or on a female to either maintain herself or to maintain anybody else. She's never obligated to do that. There is no situation in Islam where a woman will be tasked with providing either maintenance for herself or for anybody else. Whereas a male, right, for example, he's a son and now his parents are old, he will be obligated to provide for them. He gets married, he will have to provide for his wife. He has children, he'll have to provide for them as well. He has sisters who do not have husbands, for example, and he's obligated to provide for them. So the financial responsibility of males are always much more compared to the females, and that is one of the reasons. It's not the only reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the reasons in His hikmah, but this is one of the reasons we can think of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained this in this way. And that is why, if you look at it, all the laws of Islamic inheritance are absolutely equitable. It's something which is absolutely fair, looking at the financial burden of each person, etc. That being said, so yes, we usually get the question then that comes back, that in these times, or in our situation, usually a woman, if her husband passes away, nobody is prepared to look after her, her brothers are not prepared to provide for her, her family members are not prepared to provide for her, so she is forced to work. The reality is that in Islamic law, she is not forced to work, they are obligated to provide for her. That they are not practicing on that and looking after her, then that is their fault, or that is the fault of society. That is not the fault of Islamic law, right? But obviously there are situations where we can work around. For example, the wife is, and this definitely should be something that husbands should consider. Your wife has been with you for many years, right? She's left her family, she's born children with you, she's taken care of the children, she took care of the house. I always tell people this, that, your wife may not be working physically and she might not be earning any income, but she's actually working. She's the one there that is keeping the house clean. She's the one that's providing the food. You're going to work, you don't have to do any of these things. She's ironing the clothes and she's doing all the effort in the house. She's actually working. She's enabling you to work. She could have done something else during that time, and she could have had her own profession, but she's dedicated her time to the household. So she actually deserves some asset in the marriage, or some considerable asset in the marriage, and that is why brothers should definitely think about this. Ideal situation, or just to make it easy, by default is the community property agreement that is there, at least with regards to the physical assets like the property, etc., that should be mutually agreed upon 50-50. But even looking further, that if she wants to be secure, the husband wants to secure his wife, for example, she feels that she will only be inheriting 1/8 of the estate. What he can do is he can. There's two options. One is you can gift in your lifetime, but then when you gift in your lifetime, you are relinquishing control over that. The other thing that you can do is the user front, which Chris has featured in his trustees as well. The user front clause, where it's also known in Sharia as Umrah. Umrah, not spelled with the Tam at the end, the Ain Mim Ra, with the Alif Maqsura or the Alif at the end. So that is called Umrah, and that is a concept which is prevalent in the Maliki Madhab, where a person says that Dari laka Umrah, that my house is Umrah for you, meaning that as long as you live, as long as you are alive, you have the user front of this house, and you have the right to reside in this property and take full benefit from this property. So nobody can kick her out of the house, so to say. She has the full right of occupying that. It won't belong to her entirely. Of course, it will be distributed according to Islamic law, but she has the right of use of it. And then when she passes away, then after that, this is when it will be liquidated, or the shares will be given to the heirs respectively. And so there are ways of working around the situation. If a person wants to secure his wife, or he wants to secure his daughters, etc., this is something not to take into consideration as well. You can take a question from the floor.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. What happens when someone moves outside of the U.S.? How does this transfer over? Are there?
Excellent question. So it's valid in all 50 states. So what I prepare, this is based on English law. So there's nothing that prevents this trust, what I do, from owning any property anywhere in the world. Okay. But the location of the other asset might prevent it from doing it. So like I have clients I have a lot of clients in London. And so I have flats that are owned by the trust here in Washington, but they're in London. And that's fine, because it's English law. Right? I have people who live in New Zealand and Australia, same thing. They live two places. This trust owns the property in Australia. And then from here, it gets a little fuzzy. So I do have a lot of Indian, Pakistani clients. I can tell you, it does not work in UAE. It's a different system. So what I tell my clients, those of you who own property in another part of the world, is I know we need to do it here. So let's get this done here. And then what you do is you consult with a lawyer in that country, or in some places I've seen it vary by province. So in Pakistan, I've seen some provinces in Pakistan where they have allowed the transfer of the property into this trust. I have seen other provinces where they said, no, you couldn't do it. The point of the story is this, is that we need to do it here. If the other country will allow you to move that property into this trust, bonus. But if they say no, now you know you need to do something in that country so that you also comply with Islamic law for that country. So now you know. Now we're not ignorant. Now we know, and we need to do something more. Great question.
Moving on to the Zoom questions. I think we covered it. So yeah, how do we appoint someone as a guardian who does not reside in the USA? If God forbid something were to happen to the parents, what would happen if the legal guardian is not present in the country but can travel in the near future?
Yeah, excellent question. I get it all the time. So as part of, like I said, my profession, I have to attend legal seminars to keep my credentials. I also speak at legal seminars as well. I teach estate planning law and some things like that. And I have through those relationships, I also know other lawyers who do international estate planning. And I can tell you that this is the practical answer. The practical answer is this, is that if you pick for the guardianship of your child, or anybody you pick as a successor, pick somebody you trust. I don't care where they live, just pick somebody you trust. Number two is that if you pick somebody who doesn't live in the United States, well, I'll spin it out. If they live in the United States, and they're the guardian, they can move the child anywhere in the United States, and that's no problem. If they're not a citizen of the United States, they can be the guardian, but the child has to remain in Washington because Washington looks out for the best interest of the child. If that is a long-term solution, great. If that is not going to provide a long-term solution, then what the person does is they file a formal adoption in Washington to adopt the child. And under Western law, that child now becomes their child, and then they can move them anywhere in the world. And that's fine, because the cool thing that I've created is we've already created a trust for this child. So the fact that under Islamic child, the person who adopted them is not considered a child of that person under Islamic law, under Western law they are. So you can move that person under Western law anywhere in the world, and we already have a trust financially set up to benefit that person. So that's the practical solution to it. Yeah,
So
great question.
Same person asked the follow-up question, what if the people who are residing outside the USA are not considered? Same thing applies.
Same thing, same deal. I always just say, pick somebody you trust. That's it. Who cares where they live? Pick somebody you trust and then a backup. And then
I just want to add on to that as well, that the child that is adopted is not an heir according to Islamic law, but you can make a bequest for that person, right? So you can benefit from that person. And then as it's talking about bequest or facilitating some share for the child, it has to be, because it's a bequest, because it's a wasiya, it must be contained within 1/3. It should not exceed 1/3 of the estate.
yeah, and we already did it so the hypothetical couple who lives in Washington, we create the trust, they have their children, they name their children, they put their assets in the trust, we funded a trust, and so we control the money for their children. If these children then are adopted by some other family, we've already, the financial structure is still in place for the benefit of those kids. It doesn't matter who adopts them, we've already got the financial structure in place. If that other family wants to make a bequest, they can. But we've already done it on this part.
All right, there's some questions here that we want to break for lunch actually, but I'm going to.
Yeah,
so very to the point, the answer these are more like, they require just a one-line answer, right? So I'm going to read them very quickly and you can answer them quickly so that we can have these ones answered. First of all is, how easy is it to amend a living trust? Who needs to get the modified trust documents?
Yeah. It depends on what you want to amend. If you want to amend the beneficiary and the beneficiary shares, super simple. It's a 2-page document. We do it over the phone or by Zoom. I email it to you, you print it out on your end, you take it, you sign it in front of a notary public, you put it in your estate planning binder. We don't even charge for that because it's so simple. If you want to change your successor trustees, the order, the people that you want to put in power, that's a bigger deal. We have to redo all of the documents. So it's, but we don't charge the full price. Right now we charge $950. So like if we did an estate plan for somebody, 5 years ago, we charged them $2,500. We have to redo it all again. We just charge them kind of like, we just charge them $950 because it's box of paper and binder and all that stuff. So, but it's very simple to do. So it just depends on what you want to do. Some things are no charge, some things we have to charge for.
People who have a mortgage, the mortgage company may not allow the home to be put in a trust. True or false?
Have you done it already?
Yeah, we do it all the time. So there's the technical answer, and then there's the real world answer. Okay. So the speed limit, here on the highway is 60 miles an hour. How fast do you drive? You drive 64. Why? Because I know I can drive 64 and I'm not going to get pulled over. Right? So the technical answer is, in the deed of trust, it has an anti-alienation clause, and it's what's called the due on sale or transfer. If you sell it or give it away, the lender has the option, that's keyword, to make the election, another keyword, to call the entire note due and payable right now. But they must provide you a 60-day cure period. So, 31 years, several thousand estate plans, literally, I've got one lady, she has, 43 houses. It's never happened. And here's why. Because the lenders know that if they were to send the notice of default, the fix is simple. We just do another deed that goes from the trust back out, and we cured it this afternoon, right? So they don't do it. It's a rule, that's true. Now, if you were to give the property to a friend or a neighbor or whatever, somebody else that's not the trust, then yeah, they always enforce it. But when you create the estate plan and move your asset into your trust, where you're the trustor, you're the trustee, and you're the beneficiary, they never enforce it because we can fix it in a day. So nobody messes with it. So there's a difference between the technical legal answer and reality. So reality is it doesn't happen.
Another one here is if one of the parents of the deceased or for that matter, any of the heirs, how do we make sure that they are in the will and get the funds as well? I guess how do we make sure that they get the funds?
Right. So that's the cool part of what we've created is that you've got to start somewhere. We start with who's alive, what's your family tree right now today, and then we go live life. If that changes, what I've created is an automatic adjustment provision so that and what it says is this, is that the beneficiary can hire an Islamic Mufti, the trustee of the trust can hire an Islamic Mufti, those two Muftis hire a third Mufti, they act as a panel, and they will hear the beneficiary's claims, and they will hear the trustee's claims, and then that panel of three Muftis will make the rightful decision under Islamic law and adjust the percentages for the beneficiaries accordingly. So you're always in compliance with Islamic law. Yeah, great question.
Alright, so this is, I'll put these two questions in one. Is first of all, are you offering free initial consultation? And also for comparison purposes, what does the attorney charge for regular state compliant package versus the 2,500 state plus Islamic compliant package?
Yeah, I offer free consultation. It's never a waste of my time to meet new people. Once again, offering help. You know, I can't make you be smart and accept my help. Mufti Suhail, he can only offer his help, and whether you choose to accept it or not, that's up to you. But you might tell a friend or whatever, that's fine. And coming back to the other part of the question is, there's no difference in charge. I've got two people that are in the $80 million range, you know. I've got people in the $50,000, $25,000 range or less. It's the same, because to me, it's like when I was giving you the example of the $12 million bucks. It's just numbers to me. It's like preparing the PowerPoint presentation. Whether I put $800 or $8,000 or $8 million or $80 million, it's an extra keystroke. It takes me the same amount of time to prepare an Islamic, well, it actually takes me more time to prepare an Islamic estate plan than it does a traditional Western one. But I should charge you because I have such a unique thing. Might increase my price, but right now we're the same. We're going to stay the same. Actually, everybody's the same. Everybody's the same. I don't care. Rich, poor, don't care.
So there's one more question left. I don't know if I've left out anything. But yeah, if I've left out anything, please feel free to email me, and if it's specific to the attorney, I can